Freedom is a meaningless term. There is no such thing as unqualified freedom. There is no unearned freedom. If freedom must be earned, it is not free, and there is no freedom in the absolute sense. No one has an absolute freedom, and no one wants it. We could not handle freedom without boundaries. Reality could not contain this level of freedom. If anything in the natural world was free, it would dissipate as fog in the midday sun. It is easy to find quotes that praise freedom. Indeed, it is probably more difficult to go a day without hearing someone praising and glorifying the idea or the prospect of freedom. But if the person has a reasonable amount of intelligence, the quote or comment or veneration will come with a qualification. We all support free speech, except when the speech offends us, or where the language used is derogatory, or where the statement made is dangerous to public safety or health, or where the language incites violence or is off color or sexualizes children, or reveals national secrets, or involves mixed company, or interferes with due process, or is hateful, racist, sexist, derogatory, tiresome, or is in conflict with what medical experts paid by governments say is true, or when it is salacious or libelous, or may cause one to be deplatformed, and so on. We all want free speech, except all of those times when we don't want it. It seems it might be easier to list the kind of things we allow than to try and explain all of the things we want to prohibit. There does appear to be a much greater desire to have it for ourselves and for others. Our arguments for freedom of others seems nervous and miserly when compared to the generous portion we desire for ourselves. Some of the quotes made on freedom are, "The secret to happiness is freedom, and the secret to freedom is courage," by Thucydides. "Money won't create success, the freedom to make it will," Nelson Mandela. "Live free or die, death is not the worst of evils," General John Stark. What then is freedom? The power to live as one wishes, Marcus Tullius Cicero. It is easy to take liberty for granted when you have never had it taken from you. Freedom comes from strength and self-reliance, Lisa Murkowski. I prefer liberty with danger to peace with slavery, Jean-Jacques Rousseau. I'm a big advocate of freedom, freedom of speech, freedom of expression, freedom of thought, Jimmy Wales. I would like to be remembered as a person who wanted to be free, so other people would be also free, Rosa Parks. I find only freedom in the realms of eccentricity, David Bowie. Freedom to walk free and own no superior, Walt Whitman. These are from, quote, Ambition Calm. A general definition of freedom is 1. The power or right to speak, act, or think as one wants without hindrance or restraint, or 2. The absence of subjugation to a foreign dominion or despotic governments, 3. The state of not being imprisoned or enslaved. All of this makes freedom sound as it is a simple idea, a straightforward good, and if freedom is abused by some to do wrong things, the core idea is still a good idea. Our naive readiness to accept freedom on its own terms illustrates the danger of the concept. It's like the idea of investment, which everyone embraces without fully understanding what the term actually entails. If freedom is so universally wanted, why is it not universal? Why do we need not just to embrace it, but to fight and perhaps die to obtain it? There is, it seems, a large portion of persons who are keen on minimizing freedom as much as possible, at least for the poor and the voiceless. What is a despotic government but a government that wants more freedom for itself and less for its subjects? It is not against freedom, it merely does not wish to share it. Tyrannical governments do not wish to be imprisoned, but there are a great many persons they do want imprisoned. Are they different from anyone else in this regard? Do any of us think it is possible or advisable to act or speak as we want without hindrance or restraint? It is unlikely anyone wants this much freedom for anyone else. Why do we laud freedom, demand it, and fight for it, only to hem it in with multiple restrictions? It is sometimes said, that your freedom ends where my body begins, or even where my property begins. Your freedom to do with your property as you like ends. In this world, our property is rarely our property in any absolute sense. A river may run through our land, or it may be on a lake. We do not have unrestricted access to the water, nor can we control its use by others. The same goes for the air above our land, and our ownership rights extends only to a foot or so of topsoil, and not to the subsoil or what minerals lay beneath our feet. Our identity is not even free. We are under the law. This has become obvious with the regulations in force since COVID-19. Many restrictions have been placed on us to flatten the curve that would have been unthinkable prior to this event. Once we have voted in a politician, we become under the state. We have enslaved ourselves to the protocols that permitted us to vote. We have made ourselves subjects of the state and a devotee of the leader who won the election. The democratic process is about marketing a program that results in the people losing the very thing they thought they were exercising. Campaigns are about hypnotizing us to accept dependency and relative powerlessness. It does not matter to whom we pledge servitude and service, so long as we have given up our right to what we create, sometimes called our property rights. The government regulates us and cares for us as a farmer cares for and controls his livestock. When we take a job, our freedom is curtailed by another factor. We are put under another layer of control. We subjugate ourselves to a boss who has put himself under the state, even if we are our own boss and have our own business. The regulations and demands of the state and the lawful needs of workers, filtered through the regulatory power of the state, leaves us little freedom to innovate and produce value consistent with our actual capabilities. No one can give us freedom. If we wish to have freedom, we must pay for it. We purchase freedom from others, literally. The act of freedom is the same act that contains freedom or constrains it. If someone gives you freedom, you do not have it. No one is going to give you free speech or free market. This is where democracy merges into socialism. Liberals think governments can give you free speech, but then speech becomes a legal benefit, not a natural right. Freedom is a property right and comes with what one owns. What we own, we pay for with labor, directly or indirectly. We produce freedom with our labor, and that is the only way freedom can be earned. Freedom is attached to property as a right that pertains to property ownership. The one thing we cannot be free from is the need to work. We have no ownership without labor, and we cannot have any reasonable rights without ownership. The most dangerous person in the world is the person who claims he has money working for him. Investment is an unmitigated evil, only justified by the removal of our property rights. We have to work, and this is required. Then we have a right to work. No one has a right to prevent anyone from working, since work is required. If we have the right to work based on the absolute necessity of work to live, we must also have a right to own what we create. We have a right not to be imposed upon by those who will not work, or who will not work in a way that is sufficient to pay their costs. No one has a right to impose their costs on us, or to make a claim against what we produced. However, this is precisely what liberals and socialists dispute. Without the ability to create and impose liabilities on others, liberalism could not exist. Liberalism is a denial of the need to work. Its claims about the right of man to be free can only be construed as a claim that man does not need to work. If people do not need to work, then they must have a right to claim what you created. The right not to work, or the freedom not to work, is the right to enjoy what you produced. There is no other alternative. Either we have a right and duty to work, or we support socialism. Socialism is a theory of entitlement. Socialists think that every life comes with a valid claim on the wealth of others. This is a revocation of property rights. Their right and their freedom to have what you have is a revocation of your rights to own what you produced. We cannot have it both ways. We either work and have property rights, or we do not work and claim prior rights to what others produced, based on the simple fact we have breath in our bodies.